It's the Poojie Podcast, proudly sponsored by Cimarron Golf Club. What is going on, Pooj crew? Do we have an episode lined up for you today? Episode 103 of the Poojie Podcast, going in depth after the Jaguars Week 1 preseason game against the Cleveland Browns. If you watched it, you got to see some exciting stuff with rookie quarterback Trevor Lawrence taking his first snaps and much more from the game that we care about. And we got the guys back here. If you're listening on YouTube, please go find us on Spotify and Apple to listen on the go. If you're listening on one of those platforms, please feel free to subscribe. No, don't feel free. Please go subscribe right now. Like this video, share this video, tell your friends about us. Get this thing booming, because come football season, come regular season, this is exactly where you want to be for all things Jaguars. We got all the takes here for you to enjoy. And with that being said, Jacob and Sam, welcome on in, fellas.
Yo, what's going on?
Jacob's eating nachos over here, and Sam's pissed.
We got the trolley blast, bro.
Oh, okay.
God, gotta watch that sugar intake, bro.
Sam's hungry.
What's that?
No carbs, no sugar.
You literally have Sprite behind you. That has sugar.
I'm not drinking that shit.
Those are all of his mixers for the parties and all that good stuff.
True, actually.
It's football season, Jacob. You got to watch what you're eating, man. We got to get in shape. Next year is our year. Next year is our year.
Zero sugar.
Zero.
And you can eat sugar. I shouldn't be eating sugar.
Zero sugar. Sam, 2% body fat.
Let's go.
You guys get to watch the game this weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for damn sure.
Bring the fire. Bring the fire. Tell me your thoughts.
Oh, I take back everything I said about CJ Henderson. He's fucking God. I love him.
The CJ Henderson apology tour begins right now.
No.
Definitely
Sorry, bro.
Positive news for CJ. He looks like he might be kind of getting back into it.
CJ, if you're watching this podcast, I'm sorry.
It was those guys.
Might be good. I'm sorry, bro, because you got some swag to you.
It's only in every Jags fan's benefit to hope that he's good. Like, I understand why there was worry, but it was in our benefit to hope things turned around and the coaches got through to him, and not just, trade away a first-round pick just because. Like, he's way too talented.
Okay, well, hey, in our defense, I don't think I was ever hoping he was bad. I've been hopeful that he would turn out to be good, but the realist in me felt, okay, we've seen this story before here in Jacksonville. There's no chance in hell this is going to turn around. And then he played like 30-plus snaps on Saturday night against the Browns, and he looked pretty good. I mean, there was a shot that I think Case Keenum had down the sideline to, I think, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and CJ Henderson, great play on great defensive play on the play, shoulder to shoulder with him, got his head turned around, everything you would imagine, everything you would hope for in a cornerback. So, I mean, things seem to be looking up right there, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, he definitely earned it. Today in practice, he's actually getting reps with the first team. So the coaching staff definitely took notice of his performance and gave him some starting reps today, along with Andre Sisco. So that's great news for those two young guys. Both looked really good in the game.
And Tyson Campbell made a play in the end zone. He looked like he had a pass breakup. And, it looks like good things from some of these young defensive backs, which is exactly what we need, especially, years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we were built around having that dominant secondary with Barry Church and Tashawn Gibson, Jalen Ramsey, AJ Boye, and now we want to try and get that back. We were Saxonville, but, man, the coverage on that team was insane. And now we're in a situation where if some of these young guys can grow together, they're all on a very similar contract pattern to where we could have them on the cheap for about 3 or 4 years. So, I mean, that gets me pretty excited.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a deep group when it comes to, like, corners, safeties. Like, we have a lot of guys that it's a good problem to have. Not knowing which one's going to be starting alongside Shaquille Griffin or who's going to be starting at safety. It's because all these guys are playing pretty well in camp so far.
Real quick. Go for it, Sam.
Yeah, I was going to say shout out to Rayshon Jenkins in his first Jaguars action. Looked pretty good, too, flying around the field, bringing the energy to the secondary. Yeah, like Jacob said, our secondary is looking pretty good. I think that's not going to be the weak spot as it's been last year, where you had Chris Claybrooks as the starting corner on the outside. So very exciting.
Yeah. Funny enough, Chris Claybrooks ends up finishing the game with the most tackles on the team. So who would have thought that? That was not what anyone was expecting, at least going into the game. I mean, maybe from snap count. Do you think he makes the team? Is he a guy that makes the team or what?
Oh yeah, he's brings it on special teams, and then we need depth at corner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was thrust into some starting, spots
Right.
last year, and it ended up giving him some good experience. I mean, it's more than some guys could say that they had starting experience last year that were rookies. So it's like he
Yeah.
kind of had no choice but to get thrown to
Yo,
the
are we
fire.
talking
And I think
about
he
are we
played
talking
well.
about the corners next week?
Yeah, this is just a little bit of a
Alright.
teaser for those out there listening. If you're watching again live, feel free to comment. Feel free to send us your questions about the game, about the Jags, about the NFL, whatever you got going on. Feel free to ask us what's going on in the world of football. We'll be doing defensive backs next week. This week, we're going to look at the offensive line and defensive line, which quickly, let's jump into how the offense played. First 2 drives, Trevor Lawrence had a total of 2 drives, completed 6 of 9 passes, had just over 80 yards. Nice. 6 of 9. Nice. And didn't really, Jacob, we were talking earlier, it wasn't necessarily an underwhelming performance, but it felt like from the hype that we were going into it with, it felt very mundane.
It very much was underwhelming, but not because he played poorly. It was underwhelming because everyone is excited for Trevor Lawrence, and so they're just waiting to see him do something crazy. Like I think Trey Lance had an 80-yard bomb in his game, but the whole game for him wasn't that great. So like Trevor Lawrence's his debut, I felt underwhelmed people because they wanted to see something spectacular. But instead, he just played a couple drives. They didn't want to, overdo it. But he had some really good throws, honestly. And I think the best one was an out route to Marvin Jones. He hit him with anticipation. The guy hadn't even broke on his route before he threw it. And it's those types of throws you just want to see him make. And with all the sacks that happened that weren't all completely his fault, he showed poise and like just hitting the next play and not worrying about the pressure from before and like the sack from before. He just like, okay, new play, we got to convert, we got to do whatever. So it was a
Yeah.
good performance.
In true Jaguar fashion, first play of his career with the Jags, a strip sack. He recovered the fumble though, so it wasn't too detrimental. Stood up and rebounded a little bit. Had some good throws, had some good reads, but I think the problem is, and I was talking earlier with my uncle about this, when you get into the preseason, you end up not really being able to get into a rhythm. You kind of know you're on a snap count. You don't really have time to adjust to the game. So you pretty much have to go up against another team's defense, and they know they have to just give you their best for 9 snaps or whatever, 15 snaps. You don't really have time to make adjustments. You don't really have time to settle in. It looked like in the second drive he started to settle in a little bit more, which was a little bit exciting to see, more inviting to see that. But it felt like from the beginning, knowing that you're going in just to play 2 drives doesn't really give him necessarily a fair shot to really kind of unload the ball and settle in, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like he did what he was kind of supposed to on some plays. We probably could have saw more, but as we're going to talk, the offensive line kind of struggled specifically at the tackle positions, I feel. So he did hold on to the ball a little long on some plays, but then on some other plays, like he just didn't have any time to really like react to what the defense was giving him.
Yeah, and I mean, Sam, your thoughts on this? How indicative was the offensive line play to him only playing 2 drives? Did the coaching staff maybe identify the offensive line play as like being subpar and like, okay, we're not going to put him back in there because this is not a safe situation for him to be in?
No, I mean, I think that you see the stat lines from all these other rookie quarterbacks, and you're like, oh, wow, Trevor Lawrence really like underperformed in his first. But let's remember that all these guys are the backups, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be the starter for the Jags. So you want to protect that investment. I don't think it's anything on the indicative of the offensive line because those 2 tackles are going to be our starting tackles most likely. So if they wanted to see how they would perform at the first team, then that's how they looked. So it is what it is. They didn't look too great. Jawan Taylor still struggles in pass protection like he did when he was coming out of college. So, but yeah, he looked good. I thought he was having fun out there in his first game back. Apparently, David Carr was saying on ESPN that when a quarterback are they nervous with their rookie quarterback in his first action? No, they're really excited to actually just play football. So it looked like he was excited to play football, getting the ball where he needed to be. And you can really tell that Marvin Jones is going to be the number one wide receiver on this team. And that veteran presence, I think, is going to be priceless for his growth overall.
And, another good point you kind of brought up for fans is that, they see something like Justin Fields where he had like 140 some yards or whatever and like a couple touchdowns. Trevor Lawrence threw 9 passes. Justin Fields threw 20. I think he completed like 14. So Justin Fields had a better stat line and more numbers because he played longer. He attempted more passes. Like that's what we're looking at. Like I think if you're just looking at the box score and seeing like something very minimal, that's just based on playing time. Zach Wilson also, I think, completed 6 of 9 passes. So they didn't play him very much either. And he looked pretty solid in some of his throws that he had.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it didn't really look like there was a situation where any of the rookie quarterbacks played under par. I mean, Trey Lance, outside of the 80-yard pass, I think he was, outside of that, he was 3 for 14 with like 40 yards and whatever. So if anything, he maybe underperformed a little bit. But for the most part, I think we saw what we expected to see from a lot of the guys. Justin Fields used his feet during his game. Zach Wilson made decent throws. But he said it the other day. He said, you know what, if I'm going to be making mistakes, I want to do it in practice. I want to do it in the preseason before I get to the real game. And I think he senses that, some of that backlash on Twitter from training camp and stuff. And he's spot on. If you're going to make mistakes, do it in practice, get all that out of your system and take chances, right? Like Trevor Lawrence, something we kind of talked about real quick was we liked how he was taking shots down the field. That big throw to Marvin Jones, 35-yard, whatever, completion. It was nice to see him, Jacob, as you said, throw it beyond the first down marker on a third down play. He didn't just take the screen pass because it was open and try and get the extra yards on the screen pass. It was nice to see him keep his head up, keep looking downfield. And in fact, that mentality almost came back to bite him once or twice on a few of the sacks when he maybe did have the underneath route open, but he was too eager to kind of look further downfield, held the ball a little bit longer. Offensive line didn't hold up. But let's get into the offensive line, unless any of you guys have anything else about the game in general. Any other thoughts on the game before we get to offense, defensive line?
Yeah, I wanted to throw out, I think a lot of coaches wanted to watch our preseason game to see how Urban Meyer ran the offense. And I think that, you talked about Justin Fields being able to get some rushing ability in, and I just don't think that they schemed up any plays like that for Trevor just to protect him. Because whereas for the Bears, Andy Dalton is going to be the starter for that team.
I'm pretty sure I heard that some like assistant coaches and position coaches were telling Urban, like he said it, I think, they said, hey, we can't show this yet or we can't show that yet. And to him, he's like, well, why not? But he's learning that in the preseason, like how you go about, limiting snaps and like limiting your playbook and not showing all your hand yet.
Yeah, and I have no problem with that, honestly. I think that's kind of the smart move because you're not going out there necessarily to try and win the preseason game. I mean, it's a glorified team-on-team scrimmage. Like, that's all it is. Players are trying to make the team. Their roster cuts coming up tomorrow. So it's one of those things where it's a scrimmage. You're not going to throw everything at the game because, one, you want to maybe, you don't want to lose the basics. You want to make sure everyone goes out there and plays with the basics and just kind of does what they need to do and do their job. In a position group that didn't really do their job at some points, offensive line. Tackles struggled. Sam, you said it earlier, kind of made me lose some hope for the season when you said Jawan Taylor and Cam Robinson are going to be the 2 starting tackles. I say that tongue-in-cheek, kind of jokingly, but they really struggled at points. We just kind of watched the highlights before this, and it looked like they were kind of getting moved at certain points, and that kind of blew up some of the plays.
Right. I mean, and then the second team came on, and it was Walker Little and Will Richardson. So it's not like I think they're going to ease Walker Little in. We're paying Cam Robinson franchise tag money, something north of like, $12 million, $13 million. So I'd say him maintaining that role. Jawan Taylor's still not playing up to his draft capital we got in the early second round, but I mean, he was a project when he was coming in. So let's give him a little bit more time. I'm not really willing to, just throw in the towel on him yet, but he was letting up a few sacks on Trevor Lawrence early in the game. And, the offensive line as a whole, we're missing Andrew Norwell, but I thought did okay in the run game. A few, shed blocks here and there, but overall, this is going to be our starting line. So
Yeah.
what it is. I think that overall throughout the league, we're probably around middle in the pack. So not the worst and definitely not the best. So
Yeah, and I think the reason we are not one of the worst is because we do bring back a lot of experience. Obviously, Brandon Linder, he's like a 9-year veteran. He's at center. You have Andrew Norwell, who is now on his second team. I think this is his 8th year in the league, if I'm not mistaken. And then you have AJ Cann, who was drafted by the Jaguars 3 or 4 years ago. He is still on the team. Cam Robinson, this is his, you said franchise tag year, so this is his, 5th year now? Is this his 5th year or 4th year?
Yeah,
fifth.
This is 5th year. Correct. Yeah,
5th year.
And Andrew Norwell didn't even play.
Right.
Yeah. So
it's like, we don't want to say that Cam Robinson might have not still struggled, but it's like when you're missing one, that's such a group that relies on the consistency of them all being together. That any struggles from Cam could have also been like, hey, I usually rely on this Andrew Norwell guy over here rather than like Ben Barch, who's not bad, but he's still young.
Yeah. So it was interesting to watch. We'll see what happens. Jacob, what are your thoughts on the O-line with Jawan Taylor, Cam Robinson, and so on?
I definitely think, based on this performance alone, I know Walker Little wasn't perfect either, but based on camp and like hearing them rave over Walker Little, it would not be surprising in the least to see Walker Little start, and probably at the right tackle position rather than the left tackle. The offensive line in the middle, I feel stronger. Brandon Linder is one of the best centers, I think, in the NFL. I think AJ Cann isn't the greatest, but he's also pretty solid. Norwell, the same. I think the push has been coming from the outside, and I don't know if Cam would, like I said, benefit from Norwell being there. Jawan Taylor, I just don't know if he's got it, and Walker Little could be the starter, in my opinion, on the first game.
Yeah, and you know what? If there's a discrepancy between Jawan Taylor and Walker Little, I almost lean to go with Walker Little from the standpoint of you kind of already know what you got in Jawan Taylor, and if he hasn't outplayed this rookie in training camp in the preseason, that means that Walker Little is likely more ready than we thought. Maybe put him in there, maybe take the chance, but you also don't want to put Walker Little in a position going into week 1 to really have to protect Trevor Lawrence as a rookie, right tackle. I think that's also something to think about is if you have Trevor Lawrence, your prized possession, your franchise quarterback in there, you want to make sure you have pieces on the offensive line that understand the importance of the quarterback and are worried about protecting him. And that sounds kind of cliche, like every offensive lineman should be worried about protecting their quarterback. But realistically, that's a lot of pressure for Walker Little to handle if he's a rookie offensive line coming off a year where he did not play college football, and then you thrust him into a position where he's playing against the Houston Texans, not the best team, week 1. It's kind of asking for a lot from him. So we'll see. I guess over the next 2 weeks, we'll figure out more. I mean, it's kind of up in the air right now with a lot of positions. The interior offensive line, though, with Norwell, Linder, Cann, Ben Barch, and so on, I'm kind of hopeful for that. It didn't really look like much pressure was coming up the middle, did it?
I don't think so, and I think Barch played primarily because Norwell was out. So I think Barch, had a pretty decent performance. I didn't specifically watch him, but I think Norwell's better than some people give him credit for. They know the contract he got and think, okay, he should be like Pro Bowl caliber. But yeah, the push does not necessarily come from up the middle. If anything, I feel like that was our strong suit, and that's part of why James Robinson had a really good year last year.
And you know what? That's helpful. He can step up in the pocket and make some plays. So go for it, Sam.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I'd rather not have pressure in my face if I'm a young quarterback, and it gives him the opportunity to move around in the pocket and get outside and make plays like that.
Yeah, and there was the first sack. The first sack, he had Lawrence had Etienne or Robinson open in the flats, one of the sacks, but he literally could not get the ball to the wide receiver or to the running back in the flat because there was so much pressure off the right side. His arm wouldn't have even been able to get there. So it's just kind of one of those things where the pressure literally caused one of the sacks just from the standpoint of him not being able to release the ball. And, he took the sack and made that play of, avoiding a turnover or anything like that. But anything else from you guys offensive line wise, or move over to the defense?
I think the defensive line is where there's more to talk about. We have less idea of how it's going to shake up just because we're making a move to a 3-4. We have a lot of guys that can play, two different line positions. They can play all over the field. We have guys listed at specific positions, and we have guys listed at, two positions. So defensive line, I feel, is kind of like a mystery for the most part.
Well, kick it off for us then, Jacob. Kick it off. Let's talk defensive line coming from the Week 1 Browns game. What were your thoughts on the defensive line in this Week 1 game?
Real quick, Sam. I gotta say, I was super excited when the defensive line came out and they had these 5 guys lined up across the front. Yep. I was like, "Oh man, here we go, baby!" And then and then I saw Josh Allen drop back in coverage, and I was like, "Oh crap, he should be rushing the quarterback." But,
well, hey, let's talk about this real quick since you say that with 5 guys up front. Big news, obviously, every Jaguar fan has heard this. Joe Schobert being traded to the Steelers. Let's just talk about that briefly and then kind of let that ease us into this new scheme and like the defensive line setup. So obviously Schobert coming from Cleveland 2 years ago had 1 year with the Jags. And then Joe Cullen comes over. So it's like a whole AFC North, AFC Central reunion getting all these guys back in the fold. But Joe Cullen comes over from Baltimore, and then Joe Schobert gets traded to Pittsburgh. What was the idea behind that, Sam, with Schobert not necessarily working out here in Jacksonville, sending him on to Pittsburgh?
Well, I mean, Joe Schobert in run defense. You saw our run defense last year is a big emphasis on stopping the run, and Schobert was apparently being outplayed in camp by this free agent we picked up, Wilson. So, I mean, do you pay a guy, $10.5 million every year to be a backup or only come in and play if someone goes down? I mean, I would definitely rather get some value back and save all that cap space. So yeah, I love the move. If you're not going to play this guy, he's not working out, and your emphasis is stopping the run, and your linebacker, is not good at stopping the run, frankly, then obviously get rid of him and put this guy in who outplayed him in camp, who looked pretty good. So
yeah, you got to think when you move from a 4-3, which is 4 down linemen, and that there's 4 pretty big guys to help, at the trenches. When you take one of those away in a 3-4, you need linebackers, so at least one of them that's a pretty good, strong, as they say, thumper, to come stuff any gaps. And that's Damian Wilson. He's not as good as Schobert in pass coverage, but we still have Miles Jack as well as the 2 outside linebackers that could potentially drop back in coverage. So I think Damian Wilson just fit better in the scheme they're trying to move forward with. And they were talking about on the radio, it's kind of interesting that the Steelers traded for Schobert because they also run a 4-3 or a 3-4. So it's like the same issue that we might have been thinking with him. Hypothetically, you think they would too, but Damian Wilson played, in a Super Bowl too with the Chiefs. So that's also probably another great, leader in the defense to say like, hey, I've been there before. This is what it looks like. This is how you work. I think that's a great move if we weren't going to utilize Schobert in the same way that we thought.
Yeah, and let's be real, since Posluszny had moved on, we had kind of been waiting to get one of those, big thumper middle linebackers back in there. We had it with Darryl Smith a while ago. We had it with Mike Peterson. We had it with Paul Posluszny. We've had great linebackers in the history of the Jaguars, and the team loses Posluszny. They try and move Miles Jack to middle linebacker. They move him back to weak side, and then they put Schobert in. And the linebacking core for the last 3 years has just kind of seemed suspect ever since we've lost Telvin Smith and Posluszny and so on. I think this is a good move from the standpoint of it is a pretty big salary dump, and not that the team needs any more salary cap space, but as a new coaching staff and a new regime, you don't want to be tied to the idea of playing a player just because he's being paid. You want to make sure you're playing the guys that are quality players that fit your scheme and don't affect your team negatively on game days. So maybe this was the easy way of them saying, all right, well, if he's not on our team, then he can't play, and we get all that salary back from not having to pay out the contract. So let's focus on how that kind of impacts up front. We just talked, Jacob, you mentioned the 3-4 defense. What's the look going to be like with the 3-4 defense? Are we going to have big nose tackle in there, Malcolm Brown or Devon Hamilton both playing? What's it going to kind of look like from your standpoint, Sam or Jacob, if you want to jump in?
Yeah. Well, I mean, all I heard was that Devon Hamilton's a beast stopping the run, so let's get his ass in there at nose tackle. And he played at Ohio State too, so I'm sure there's some familiarity between him and Urban Meyer even with his skill set. So apparently he's been showing out, playing really well. Gotsis looked good in there as the three technique, I believe. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, those guys looked good. I don't know if I saw much of Malcolm Brown, but I liked Chason looked good and Josh Allen. Like I said before, it's just them dropping back in coverage, man. Josh Allen, I want him rushing the passer. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're probably going to talk about both Allen and Chase on, our linebacker and our defensive end videos because, like I said, they're listed as both on the roster. If you go to the Jaguars website, and so Malcolm Brown was traded for, I think, specifically for this move to a 3-4, and Devon Hamilton has just turned out to impress them in camp. I think they inherited Devon Hamilton, not really sure what he was, but I remember hearing that he looked okay until the pads came on, and then he looked really good. And that's where you're going to see some of these guys make their money in practices. When you get the pads on, they can actually do what they do. So I think we have two pretty good nose tackles. Devon might start. And then, if we get like a passing down, Roy Robertson Harris, one of our big free agents, he could play in the middle, but on like some rundowns, he's probably an outside defensive end. And Gotsis, like Sam said, he's been playing well. I've heard good things from him.
Did Jihad Ward play at all this week?
He might have. If not, or if he did, I didn't really pay much attention.
Yeah, me neither. I was kind of curious about how he would have played. I have to go back and watch and see if he did anything or made any plays, if he was even on the stat sheet. Or Jacob, you were about to ask a question. What's up?
I was just going to say, when it comes to nose tackle, that Jay Tufele guy that we drafted, he kind of comes off as a nose tackle or defensive tackle. Do you think those are the three guys we probably keep and that's it? Like defensive tackle?
Yeah.
Whoa. What about Taven Bryan, guys?
Be shipped off.
Actually, you got to make a roster spot for Taven Bryan.
The Taven Bryan roster spot, the castaway.
He finally just hit the practice field today, I think, like with his helmet and everything. And I think now they're going to realize how bad he is and he's going to get cut next week.
Yeah, they've been holding out hope that he may be able to work out with the team because he hasn't been able to play. Maybe that was his strategy. Let me just hold on for as long as I can by saying that I'm injured or by saying I have COVID or whatever, and now I can't play, so they can't cut me.
Yep.
Is that realistic, Sam?
Yeah, he's
no.
Okay, so we have Jacob, Devon Ham. Yeah. So if you're running a 3-4, you really only have the need for a few nose tackles anyway, especially if Malcolm Brown is all he's hyped up to be. The Tufele guy, he coming in from USC, obviously rookie status. He's going to stay on the team. And then Devon Hamilton, they've liked what they've seen from him. So if that's the case, there's no real reason to keep more than that because there's not going to be many opportunities for all of them to get on the field anyway. So you want to keep those guys. When you look at it, I'm pretty sure Malcolm Brown and Devon Hamilton are the only two defensive linemen we have like over 305 pounds. So we don't have many big bodies up front, which I think goes back to the idea of the 3-4 defense Sam, you mentioned, defense, it looks like they just want to have athletes that are fast, speedy, can get into coverage, can get up into the line, can get into the backfield. And I think that's what they have with a few guys. We saw it from Gotsis. He played pretty well week 1 preseason game. He's just kind of been one of those journeymen that's been on the roster for a while too. But then you have Josh Allen at outside linebacker. We'll talk about him next week. You have Caleb Chase on at strong side linebacker. So you have guys that are going to be these hybrid type players. And I feel like it's the ultimate boom or bust situation. Like either this is going to work out beautifully or it's going to crumble in front of us and be the Achilles heel that keeps us from being a good team. I don't know.
At least we get like a good rotation with these guys. And I mean, you have quality players on the interior that you can rotate out and you can stop the run because if you can't stop the run in this league, you pretty much have no shot. The team can just run the clock out. And a lot of teams, like the Ravens that's all they do. They'll run the ball. The Cleveland Browns, for example, we played that. I mean, they just run the ball. So if you can't stop that, then secondary. It doesn't matter how good your secondary is; they just won't throw it.
And to be fair, like that's exactly what if you watch this preseason game, the defense looked like it gave up a lot of yards. It did, but you know where it didn't give up a lot of yards was on the run game. Our run defense, it's still just one game, but it looked pretty improved from the guys we had. The defense was getting more picked apart passing and a lot of the short stuff. But when you have guys like we named in the defensive tackle spot, Roy Robertson Harris, he's probably going to flip back and forth because he can. Defensive ends like Jihad Ward, like you said, Dewan Smoot, we're forgetting. He was a great pass rusher, but he's also a very big body. He can hold up his end on the run. Jordan Smith, we got him in the draft. I think he's going to be, on the team pretty solid. And then that Gotsis and Lorente McCray. He's more of like a pass rusher, I'd say. But like we have a good rotation of defensive ends as well as defensive tackles.
Mm-hmm.
That this should be an improvement, at least in the run game, and hopefully we get to the passer.
Yeah, and hopefully, maybe we don't have many guys that stand out as superstars or separate themselves, which obviously every team wants, like, having a Chase Young or a Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa type thing. But I feel like we have a lot of guys that are quality enough to where they can keep their legs fresh. They can continue to kind of keep the pressure up and the energy up and the heat up when they're on defense to kind of make things a little bit better. But weaknesses coming from the game, it did look like the flats were a big hole in the defense. It looked like the flats were taken advantage of with some of the screen plays. Maybe that's something where the Jags in practice this week need to focus on, maybe covering the flats a little bit more, and then a little bit of coverage over the middle was also a little bit of a weakness as well. Not deep into the secondary, but defensively, those did look kind of like the weak spots. And then it didn't look like there was too much pressure on the quarterback. I mean, there was enough pressure to make him look uncomfortable at times, but there wasn't any real consistency as far as, okay, our defensive line is outbodying and outworking their offensive line. Hopefully that changes. I know the Cleveland Browns have one of the best offensive lines in the league, but hopefully that changes moving forward with the Saints coming up. Monday Night Football, fellas. Monday Night Football. How are we feeling about some Monday night?
I'm excited. It's the first time we've been on Monday night in 15 years?
Wait, are we the only game? Are we the only game on? You gotta watch this.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, there we go.
Big Monday night, 8 o'clock on ESPN out in New Orleans.
Yeah, before we fully transition to Monday night, just to kind of cap off what you said with our defensive line. Yeah, we might not have gotten a lot of pressure, but I think part of it is Joe Cullen with his 3-4 defense. He's going to bring a lot of creativity, a lot of stunts, I think, to help create a pass rush. We're not going to see all that in the preseason right now. They're not showing their cards yet. So they're literally just putting them on the offensive line and saying, go.
Yeah.
So hopefully in this next game we see more of a push because now we got Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. They're not quick, get the ball out passers like I think Case Keenum is. Jameis Winston will look for that deep ball all day, so we might sack him a couple times.
Hey, I'd love to see it. I'll say this. Last note about the preseason games, and you just kind of hit on it again. It feels to me like the preseason, it's almost like the coach is looking at individual players and how they win their matchups or lose their matchups. Like, obviously, when it gets to the regular season, the coaches are looking at the win-losses a little bit more intently. Right now we're analyzing this game as if it was a regular season game, just from the standpoint of where were the weaknesses, where were the strengths. But I think a lot of it is, like you said, Jacob, I think the defensive line coach wants to challenge, all right, hey, Josh Allen, I want you to do this on this play, or these are the things I want to see you succeed at. And I think that's more of what the preseason is about, is those players winning their individual battles and then in turn making the team and making those plays to make the team. So if you care about the preseason, I think that's a little bit of an overstatement. We don't like you. Don't care too much about the preseason. If you care about football, that's great. Watch football to love football and enjoy it. But if you take too much away from it, it's not the best way to go about it. Just watch it and enjoy it, and I think we'll have a better understanding come week 3 of the preseason leading into week 1. What do you say, guys?
Baltimore Ravens have won 18 straight preseason games.
Yeah, that's absurd.
Possible.
And how many Super Bowls have they won
Why can't the Jags do that? That's what I don't.
All I'm saying is
why can't we just do
a
that?
good team. It does not preseason success does not equate to Super Bowl success.
The Lions, when the Lions went 0-16, they went 4-0 in the preseason.
I did. I remember that.
So, come on. They were probably so excited. Oh, my gosh, we have Dan Orlovsky. We're going to win the Super Bowl. This is great. And then...
Maybe they just cut the wrong guys.
That's
Maybe
true.
they're like, they went 4-0 and they cut the wrong ones, and, we got rid of the good players.
We got rid of the good ones. Yeah, I don't take too much from the preseason. It's fun to watch football, but I'm not going to lie. I spent some of my time in the Bud Zone there at TIA Bank Field. So.
Oh, snap. You were at the game.
Buddy.
How'd the ball look coming out of Trevor's hand? Pretty good.
Oh, honestly, it looked good. He had a quick release. I like how he stands tall in the pocket. What's up?
It looks good. It looks good on TV too, like that out route. I mean, I gotta say, Zach Wilson's ball looks pretty good too. Like that guy can sling. That guy can sling the football. And like I was saying, in the draft. I mean, that talent is real. Like that ball gets there quick with him. But
yeah,
Trevor Lawrence, same thing.
And I feel like we're all sitting here, and everyone across the NFL is sitting here trying to pinpoint, who's going to be the best, who's going to be the worst out of this QB class. I personally have no problem with just thinking, okay, why can't they just all be good? Like, how crazy would that be? How crazy would that be?
Of them bust. So that means at least 2 of them got to go.
I think he just means like why would you care to like hope any of them are bad?
Yeah, like why are we so quick to like pinpoint and try and judge? Oh, this is the bust. That's the bust. Imagine doing that to Peyton. Imagine doing that to Peyton Manning after his rookie season.
I would hope that Trevor Lawrence is awful. As a Jags fan, I actually still hope that Zach Wilson has a good career.
No.
But as a Jets fan, I would absolutely just pray that Trevor Lawrence is not good because you almost could have had him. That was the problem. We got who we got, and we didn't have to worry about who was in front of us.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like no matter how good some of these other guys are, I don't think no one is ever going to look back and question drafting Trevor Lawrence over, Zach Wilson or Justin Fields or Trey Lance or Mac Jones. Like no one's ever going to look back and say, oh, well, they made the wrong choice. No, at the time of the pick, the choice was correct, and everyone knew that he was the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. The real question would be is if Zach Wilson does not do well, then the Jets fans being like, well, we could have had Justin Fields if he becomes something great. So it's always about how good you are compared to the next guy behind you, knowing that could have been the person you had if you had made a different decision. But I think ultimately, if Zach Wilson has a great football, fine. If Trevor Lawrence has one, great. If Justin Fields is good, great. But none of that affects the Jaguars. We need to win football games. We need to go out there and play well. It doesn't matter what Zach Wilson and Justin Fields are doing.
Yeah, and everyone goes into their own situation. So when you compare these guys, you're not comparing them based on like ceteris paribus, as you would say, Mr. Fields. I know you're watching, probably not. You're not. I hope you're watching, Mr. Fields, because that was for you.
Now I got to send that to him.
If all things are the same, we can judge these guys against each other. But like what Trevor Lawrence is getting put into, and Zach Wilson's getting put into, and Trey Lance and John, they're all getting put into different situations. So it almost is important where you go in the situation you get put in. People that bust, probably, some are bad and some were put in a bad situation. Andrew Luck, he's one of the best, prospects to come out, and he did pretty well despite not really having a great line and not having a great, offensive situation right away. But he made the situation. Those are the guys that we hope Trevor Lawrence is. Zach Wilson might not be the guy that transcends a bad team, so hopefully they put some good stuff around him, and then we beat him in our matchup this year.
I have a question for you. Well, first of all, did any of you guys watch the Colts game yesterday against the Panthers at 1?
Absolutely not.
No,
I didn't. I wanted to, but I actually.
Okay, I would recommend going to watch the highlights and or stats, being that we're in the AFC South. I think Carson Wentz going down could be the best thing for the Colts because I think Sam Ehlinger and Jacob Eason, I was watching the game, and they played outstanding. Like, they looked very good. And I don't know what that means.
It's for good coaching, too. I mean, they got really good coaches.
I'm nervous. Like, I left watching that game nervous a little bit about what they could have found in Jacob Eason. And I like Jacob Eason because he was a 4-year starter in college. He played a lot of college football. He's seen a lot of defenses. He's seen a lot of schemes. And he just has that experience of a quarterback that's played for a long time. It seemed like he was in college for 6 years. I think the Colts, you heard it here first, may have found something very special in one of those two guys, more so Jacob Eason. But they both looked good. They both had 120-plus yards. They both completed about 75% of their passes, a few touchdowns. And then, briefly, did you guys see the stat lines from the Broncos game?
A
No.
little bit of that game. And
Patrick Surtain with the pick six. That's already paying off.
Cool. Drew Lock looked sexy out there.
I heard that. Yeah,
Drew Lock, 5 for 7 with 150 yards and 2 touchdowns.
Right.
Wow.
Some of that's KJ Hamler.
Okay, so like when you talk about Justin Fields' stat line, he had 20 total passes. So Drew Lock basically matched the same production with less than half the amount of attempts. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. And then Teddy Bridgewater, not too shabby, 8 for 9 with 92 yards, I think it was, in a touchdown. So they played pretty well. The Broncos quarterbacks played well. But that's all I got for this evening, guys. Anything else from you ahead of a week 2 preseason? Anything else?
I think I'm just excited to see Travis Etienne because I think we never really got to see him, in the open field. Gardner Minshew blew that chance for us. He overthrew Travis Etienne on a pass to the flat. So I'm excited to see him and if he gets the ball in space and what kind of moves or what kind of speed he has at the NFL level.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm excited to just see if the offense just is able to settle down based on snaps. Week 1, it seemed very erratic. It seemed like they were never able to get in a rhythm. It seemed like players were on and off the field, rotational guys playing in and out. Like, it just didn't seem like, and I guess that happens in every preseason game, but when we went into this game expecting it to be, a smooth game plan, we wanted to see certain things, my expectations were very lowered about a quarter into the game, seeing how much rotation was happening, and it seemed very all over the place, just very erratic. I want to see some sort of structure in this game, hopefully get more rhythm going, see what we have on our hands. Hopefully that's what we'll get.
Yeah, and Urban Meyer talked about the tempo of the offense, and he wasn't really happy with the tempo. So hopefully, we see that get coached up this week, and maybe coming out will be a little bit quicker to get to the line and kind of, set up. And I think Trevor said, when you do that, it kind of gives you more time to then adjust to the defense than if you, don't get there too quick and now I got 10 seconds before I got to snap the ball.
Yeah.
You don't get a chance to really make those adjustments. So let's see if that there's improvement with Urban Meyer and his stuff. What you got?
Do you think that has something to do with why Gardner Minshew is getting first-team reps today at practice? Like, seems like there's still a little bit of a quarterback comp. Maybe they're trying to emphasize, stuff like that. But
honestly, who knows?
I don't see Minshew starting week 1, but I could see that happening today, like you said, to work on that timing. And Gardner Minshew's never, his whole first season, he didn't have a single delayed snap. So he's very on time with that kind of stuff and very
And to be fair, like Trevor Lawrence, that was probably one of the positives people don't think about. He didn't have any delayed games, or he didn't look like he got slow. Right. I think it was the offense as a whole and the team as a whole. But maybe Gardner's getting some first team reps, not necessarily because he's playing against Trevor Lawrence, but right after this game, Gardner Minshew might be battling for his backup spot because CJ Beathard looked really good. He was playing against backups himself. But we know he's a veteran. He's played in the league a few years, and he's actually started games and stuff. So is Minshew. So that might be the battle I think going on is which of these two guys.
Here's the deal. We know what we have in Gardner Minshew, right? Like he's a 1-15 quarterback, but he was a 6-6 quarterback 2 years ago. We know what we have in Minshew. Here's my thing on the quarterback controversy, the competition, I'll say. Okay, I don't think anyone thinks Minshew's actually going to start week 1. I think everyone's pretty certain it's going to be Trevor Lawrence.
There's some dumb fans that think that, and they're worried.
Jesus.
You know it, too.
Jesus.
I hope we're right. Jeez.
Part of me wonders how much of this competition is from the standpoint of maybe they're trying to increase Gardner Minshew's trade value. Maybe they're trying to make it look like he's better than he is by giving him first-team reps and giving him more time in practice. Because let's be real, if Trevor Lawrence came out, named him starter in the first week of training camp, got all the first-team reps, teams on the outside are going to say, okay, well, obviously this guy was not able to compete with a first-round rookie quarterback. He can't hold his own. But now it looks like there is a competition. Teams on the outside might be saying, oh, look at Gardner Minshew holding true with the first overall pick, hanging in there with the first-team offense. That's one thing. Second thing, we've talked about it before. Urban Meyer coming from the college ranks. What happens in college when you have a freshman quarterback when there's already a sophomore, junior, or senior? The incumbent quarterback, for the most part, typically gets the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's another thing that's happening here is Urban Meyer is used to having freshman quarterbacks come in and sit for 1 or 2 years and then wait behind guys that have more experience and have played more. I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case here. I think he has enough of a counsel around him and enough coaching staff to maybe tell him not to do that. But I think he's extremely comfortable having that 5-star recruit come in and not start right away, at least in training camp or practice, preseason, whatever it is. So I'm not surprised if that type of mindset is also playing into this little bit of hesitation in naming him a week 1 starter, because at Ohio State and at Florida, he did the same thing for a number of years with a lot of great quarterbacks. So
yeah, and I don't think anyone questions. I mean, some people question whether Trevor will be the starting quarterback week 1, but I mean, Urban Meyer knows what he's doing. I think he knows that Trevor can make throws that Minshew can't. So there might be other reasons that we're just not NFL coaches. We don't know how they analyze things, but don't freak out. Trevor's going to start, That's all it is.
And I mean, all right, if Gardner Minshew does start,
He won't.
should we feel comfortable just being like, okay, he must have beat out Trevor Lawrence in camp? Like, should we just trust that the better quarterback is playing?
No,
Or
if he starts, I think I will go ballistic.
Bro,
Because I don't think from my eye test that he has outperformed Trevor Lawrence.
So that's like saying, the Browns, when they took Baker Mayfield first overall, Tyrod Taylor started the first 5 games. And I mean, did Tyrod Taylor beat out Gardner Minshew? Or was there some sort of, maybe we're, just like Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs, so we're going to ease this guy in, let him learn the playbook.
Urban Meyer didn't leave the college ranks in his nice NFL on Fox job to come draft Trevor Lawrence and then start Gardner Minshew. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Urban Meyer came to Jacksonville knowing he could start Trevor Lawrence day 1.
All right.
But Sam, your point stands. We'll allow it.
Right. I'm saying that less to you and just to the fans or anyone watching this. I know right now this is like, it's under people's skin. And you know what? Tebow's going to be in the first round of cuts. I'm saying it. I'm calling it now.
He's out of here.
Don't be a Tebow hater, Jacob.
Well,
he's so bad at tight end.
He's bad.
Stop.
He's bad.
You heard
real quick, last thing I'll say about the quarterback situation is, Sam, you just said it about Baker Mayfield.
Sweet.
Jacob just cut Tim Tebow. Sam, you just said it about Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes. I personally have no problem with sitting a first-round quarterback until there's time for them to play. But who were both of them sitting behind? Alex Smith, who was a pretty seasoned vet in Kansas City, Tyrod Taylor, who was a pretty seasoned vet in Cleveland, coming from Buffalo. So at least there were guys that had started in the past, that had played a lot of downs in the past, that were seasoned, experienced veterans, not a 3rd, 4th year quarterback who is still fighting to start in the NFL. I think the difference is Alex Smith knew his role on the team was to be the placeholder for Patrick Mahomes. Tyrod Taylor knew his place on the team was to be the placeholder for Baker Mayfield. I think that is the difference in these two situations. Now, granted, I don't think it's a bad idea to wait and sit and let them develop, but I also think this is a situation where it is so clear that the better quarterback is Trevor Lawrence. You can't waste his development by sitting him on the bench. And Peyton Manning, who was on Pardon My Take about 2 weeks ago, came in and said, I think more quarterbacks should start day 1. They will only learn by trial by fire. Let them make mistakes. Don't pull them out. He said, if I had gotten pulled out after I threw my 10th interception, who knows what type of quarterback I would have become. Because you have to go through those growing pains, and he had the worst rookie season in NFL history, and he came out the back end of it a Hall of Fame quarterback. So let the guys go in there and play. Let them make mistakes. It's going to be painful, but I think it might be long-term for the best. So now I'm off my soapbox, but anything else from you guys? Sam, I feel like we just put you down. Sam, are you okay?
No, I mean, I don't know. Maybe
you just love Gardner Minshew.
We're going to be a playoff team this year, and Trevor has to start week 1. I don't know. So we'll see. I don't see the purpose in giving Minshew the first team reps the day after the first preseason game. It just doesn't make much sense.
But
I guess
again,
we'll see on Monday who is going to start. I mean, they're not going to say anything until like the day before. So,
well, Urban Meyer did come out today and say that expect Trevor Lawrence to get much more first-team reps in preseason week 2.
Awesome.
I think, too, it's
Great.
like we're talking about the practice after the first preseason game. Like, if this continues to, like, the last few weeks of training camp, that's when I'm thinking, okay, what's going on? It's still early in camp. We have, 3 more weeks. So Trevor's going to have more opportunity to show up. So is Minshew, but Minshew did not look good. I think Trevor just, looked like he's ready for the moment. It wasn't like amazing, but he definitely looked like he looked the part.
I like
Right.
it. So we've kicked off the CJ Henderson apology tour. We love what we see from the defensive backs. We'll be kind of analyzing that next week, so be sure to tune in to episode 104 next week where we take a look at the linebackers and the defensive backs before the regular season begins in a few short weeks. But, gentlemen, thank you for being here today to talk about offensive line, defensive line. I know it's not the sexiest positions, but it's a lot of good stuff to dive into, especially if you're a diehard Jaguar fans like we are. And if you're watching out there, please go find us on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, Google. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, please go find us on YouTube, subscribe, and like the videos. Go enjoy the rest of your week. Only a few weeks left until some meaningful football in both college and NFL. Go enjoy the week, and most importantly, go make this world a better place, and take care.
How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man? How can I be the man when you're the man?